Welcome back, Algebra 2 students, to the second part of 4.5, and this is the last lesson for the chapter. Today's learning target is, I can solve a rational equation, which you remember that was your same learning target as last lesson. So we're building on that concept. So I can solve a rational equation and identify extraneous solutions. And we'll talk about what that means as we work through this example. So here's your example. This is still a rational equation. These are all rational expressions there, and it's an equation, so we're solving for x, all right? But if you notice, it's a little more complicated because now I have a fraction plus a fraction here instead of just a single equals a single. So this is a little more work, but it's fun. We've got this. So the first thing you want to do before you start is you want to factor all the denominators, if you can. So factor denominators. That's good, that's good. This can be factored. So I'm gonna go do that. So that'll be x and x. Then the factors of 15 that add to -8 would be -5 times -3 there. All right, step 1 is done. Denominators are factored. Step 2, we're going to use those factored denominators and find the LCM of them. So step 2, find LCM of the denominators. Okay? So it's x minus 5 times x minus 3 times, oh, we already have that one, and we already have that one. These are repeats. So this is our LCM. Okay. Step 2 is done. Now, step 3, we're actually going to find the domain at this point, because the domain comes from the LCM. So you might as well just get it out of the way. What is the domain? What is the restriction on x? X cannot be 5 or 3. Okay, so domain, so use LCM for the domain there. Okay. Step 4. Now we're going to multiply each part, so each fraction that we see here. So we're going to multiply this and this and this by the LCM. So multiply each fraction by the LCM. All right, so this fraction here, I'm going to multiply it, the LCM. This fraction here, I'm going to multiply this by the LCM. And lastly, this fraction here, multiply by the LCM. All right. Now, we're going to eliminate fractions. Eliminate fractions. And if you have the correct LCM, the fraction should just eliminate in this step. So these cancel out, so that fraction is eliminated. These cancel out, so this fraction is eliminated. And these cancel out, so this fraction is eliminated. Again, if you don't have all your fractions eliminated, that means your LCM is not right. You need to go back to that step and figure out what went wrong with the LCM. All right, my fractions are eliminated. Now I'm going to simplify. So I'm going to go back here and multiply what's left over here. So I'm going to multiply this x minus 3 times 1, which is x minus 3. And then I'm going to multiply this x minus 5 times x. So I'm going to distribute that x. So x times x is x squared, and x times negative 5 is negative 5x equals, now I'm going to multiply 2 to whatever is over here, but this all canceled out, so it's only 2 left over here. And now that I have it as one equation with no fractions, I can solve it. So that's step 7, solve for x. Solve for x. Now notice you have a quadratic here. You have an x squared. So you're going to have to solve by getting everything to this side. So you want to get it set equal to 0. And that's only when you have the x squared. If you don't have the x squared, then just solve for x like you would a normal problem. But because of that x squared, I want to get everything equal to 0. So I'm going to combine my like terms. So that would be minus 4x minus 3 equals 2. I'm going to put it in standard form. And then subtract this 2. So it is all set equal to 0. All right. Once I have it set equal to 0, to solve this quadratic, there's 2 ways to do it. You can use your quadratic formula. Let me give you that in case you don't have that memorized. Just write it up here. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. But I like to factor it because I think it's easier and faster. So that's the way I'm going to solve it. Instead of using the quadratic formula, I'm just going to go ahead and factor that. And then, so set each equal to 0 here. So x equals negative 1 and x equals positive 5. Those are my answers. Now I have to go back and check for extraneous solutions. What is an extraneous solution? It's a solution that is not true. So it does not work for this problem. And the way you can tell is by looking at the domain. So here's my domain up here. So what did we say? The restrictions on x. X cannot be 5 and x cannot be 3. So if I check my answers here, I got an answer of 5. So that would be an extraneous solution. So I only have one answer to this problem, and it's x equals negative 1. And that's your last step here. So use your domain to check for extraneous solutions. All right, so there you have it. There's your example. Now let's practice it. There you go. Try that one. Pause the video. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is factor the denominators. which we're good to go there. And then we use those denominators to find the LCM. So my LCM is x minus 2. Now I want to find my domain, so I'm going to use that LCM to find the domain, which is x cannot be positive 2. 2 minus 2 is 0. And then I'm going to take my LCM and multiply every fraction in the problem by that LCM. Now I want to eliminate my fractions. All my fractions are eliminated now. Then I'm going to simplify. I'm going to bring down that 5x. I'm going to distribute the 7 and plus 10. And now I'm just going to solve for x. I don't see any x squared. It's not a quadratic, so I don't have to get it equal to 0. I can just solve it. Going to combine my like terms first. Negative 14 plus 10 is negative 4. Then I'm going to get my x's together and divide by 2 to get, oops, where did that 10 come from? I was looking at that, but it's negative 4. And then divide by negative 2. And you get 2. All right, so remember, you need to check, after you got your answer, you still need to check to make sure it's not extraneous. So I'm going to check it with the domain, and sure enough, look at that. My answer is extraneous. And I don't have any other answers, so the final answer is no solution. There's no solution to this problem. All right, let's try another one. There you go. Try that one. Okay, so I would factor the denominators. I can't, they're already factored down as much as they can, but I'll use those denominators to find my LCM, which would be 4 times x minus 3. And then I'll use that LCM to find my restrictions. X cannot be 3. Then I'm going to take my LCM and multiply each piece by that. And eliminate my fractions. Okay. Simplify what's left over, so I'm going to do 4 times 3 is 12. Distribute, oh, you just really have x times 4, so that would be 4x. And then I have negative x times x, and then the negative 3, so that's negative x squared plus 3x after I distribute that negative x. And then, now I'm going to look at my problem. I'm going to solve for x, and I notice that it's a quadratic. So when it's a quadratic, you have to get everything equal to 0. I'm going to combine my like terms first. And then I'm going to move everything over to the left because I want to make that x squared positive. Move that over to the left as well, so it becomes negative, and then plus 12 equals 0. And then remember, you can use quadratic formula or you can factor. I always like to factor. And that gives me x equals 3 and x equals 4. I'm going to compare my answers to my domain, and I see that the 3 is extraneous. So my final answer is x equals 4. All right. Try another one. All right, LCM. It's just x minus 3. X cannot be 3. Multiply everything by the x minus 3. Eliminate fractions and simplify. So I'm going to distribute that x squared minus 3x plus 6 equals 2x. I notice it is a quadratic. That x squared tells me to get everything set equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract that 2x, factor, so x is 2 or x is 3, but it can't be 3. So final answer, x equals 2. Let's try another one. All right, my LCM is x plus 5, which tells me that x cannot be negative 5. And I'm going to multiply both sides by that x plus 5, which eliminates my fractions. So I'm left with x squared equals 25. And I will subtract that 25 and factor it. That is a difference of squares there. So x equals negative 5 or 5. But I know it can't be negative 5, so my answer is x equals 5. Okay, last one. Go ahead and try that one. Okay, so this one, I do need to factor this right here. X squared minus 1. That is a difference of squares. So that factors to x plus 1 times x minus 1. Now I'm going to use all the denominators to find my LCM. So it's going to be 3 times x plus 1, repeat, x minus 1. So that's my LCM. Restrictions cannot be negative 1 or 1. Take the LCM and multiply both sides by the LCM. Eliminate your fractions. Okay, simplify. So I have x minus 1 times 4. So I'm going to distribute the 4. And then left over here I have 12 times 3 is 36. And we're just solving for x, so we're going to add 4 to both sides. And divide by 4, and you get x is 10. Check to make sure it's not extraneous. It is not, so we're good to go. X equals 10, final answer. And that concludes the lesson, and also it concludes chapter 4.